A.E. Housman said, good literature, continually read for pleasure, must, let us hope, do some good to the reader, must quicken his perception, though dull, and sharpen his discrimination, though blunt, and mellow the rawness of his personal opinions. Isn't it nice to hear young teenagers and younger teenagers share their written word with us? The French novelist Émile Zola said, if you ask me what I came into this life to do, I'll tell you, I came to live out loud. And it's nice to have you poets and authors share your work with us out loud. Tony Hoagland, you're going to be introduced properly in a minute, but come share some words about Sean Sexton.
Okay. So, I did want to say some things about Sean Sexton, not the things that everybody says about him. And there are a lot of outstanding lawsuits, and a lot of words have been written inside public telephone booths about Sean, you know. But those things really aren't true. Anyway, I don't know Sean well, but and I know many of you do, but I just have so much respect and feel such warmth for him to meet a Renaissance man of his capacities and somebody who's just interested in making the world a more human place for a lot of other people, this kind of selflessness. He seems to be, he sort of puts the rest of us to shame with his sort of manifold talents. I went out to his ranch this morning with some of the other writers, and we saw the house that he had built and the paintings that he had painted. We ate breakfast from eggs he had actually laid himself and hatched, with that kind of dedication and diligence. It's uncommon. It's very uncommon. And also for a man to be, actually capable of that kind of nurturing is very special. I was thinking that, if D.H. Lawrence and William Stafford had gotten married, that Sean Sexton might have been one of the results of that profane union. Or if Mr. Rogers had married Roy Rogers in a ceremony conducted by Clint Eastwood, and had lived in a house dedicated to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, you might have a Sean Sexton come out of that. But I was looking at his, his cowboy hat. He wore a good hat today to the fancy show, but he just seems to me like a trickster figure, sort of. That word chthonic that comes up out of the earth, a sort of artesian human being. And he wears this dirty, battered, cowboy hat, and it has a broken crown. And if you're a student of Carl Jung, you would know that is a manifestation of a kind of Pan figure, or a kind of trickster earth god. And I mean, even the broken crown is, that's a little Dionysian. It indicates no desire to master the world, but in a way a desire to sort of embody it, and to sort of bring other people into its sort of wealth and beauty. And so I just wanted to praise him for a moment for making this happen. The male dilemma is also embodied in Sean.
The male dilemma comprises laying and hatching eggs, apparently. My goodness. I don't think he should read now. I think that was it. You're out, Tony. You're out of business. Who would think? You know, you ask these guys, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. Well, I guess we have to get started. You know, we're into it. Although, you know, we can cut it off of his time. You know, that's not going to be a problem. I promised Brian Turner I'd read one poem. It's going to be so small you won't even know that I did it. And it's all bound up in this thing. You know, you heard Tony talking. It's called the he and she of it. We had the Eves last time, right? You remember? And now we're full face into the Adam thing. She has her father's hands, small and delicate, on him, and giant ears of the old man made of her pearly skin. While his features so slight, easily imagined on another, have crossed a great divide, arriving from his mother. And we walk around our lives, a jumble of borrowed parts, all with the he and she of it, tangled in our hearts. Thank you. I can not only promise you, but assure you I'm not going to read another poem today. I'm going to introduce Kenneth Hart. We met in St. Augustine for the first time, and ran around and drank too much beer and had a fabulous time, and we've been friends ever since. And we're both published by Anhinga Press, and he received an MFA from Warren Wilson College in 1998. He teaches writing at New York University, works in the family roofing business. So we got an honest-to-God roofer with us. You see the male dilemma taking shape, don't you? He gives readings and workshops for the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation. His book reviews appear regularly in the Journal of New Jersey Poets. He's the 2007 co-winner of the Allen Ginsberg Award and the recipient of the 2008 Editor's Prize for the New Ohio Review. He lives in Long Valley, New Jersey. His book, Uh-Oh Time, was the winner of the Anhinga Prize in '07, and he's presently the poetry editor for the Florida Review out of UCF. Ken, would you come up, please? And Ken hates to be asked to do things. Will you tell that joke about the Quattrocento open mic?
But yeah, it's something like the first open mic. Dante got up to the microphone and said, "I'm just going to read one poem." So, hello everyone. How are you? Can you hear me okay? It is amazing to be here. I've been around for about 5 days, and Sean has shown me his ranch and let me stay in his house and fed me, and it's really been a great pleasure. And Charlotte and John let me stay at their house, and Marie had a great party for us last night. And there's a lot of other people who I could thank if I remembered everyone's names. But it's really great to read with Tony and Brian. Tony and I met. He was the first teacher of mine in graduate school 20 some odd years ago, and we've been friends ever since. So there's a kind of lineage there. And Brian I've met many times before, but we've never read together, and I'm really happy to be here with you. So I don't want to read too many male dilemma poems, but this one is about the body. I'm going to read a poem or two about the body. This one is about kind of the upkeep of the body and how that can be somewhat draining over time. And The poem is called Ken, which is interesting because that's my name. Pieces of Ken are falling off of Ken. Skin flakes, arm hairs, clipped nails, flushed, scraped, shed onto the carpet, while jars and bags of not Ken are pulled from the fridge and cupboard, sautéed, whipped, and diced, then shoveled into the mouth hole to become Ken, to keep Ken going. But Ken gets a little tired of having to scrub Ken, oil Ken, vacuum Ken from the rugs. And Ken doesn't always have the funds to pay someone to swab Ken from the dresser tops and window sills and pull Ken out of the bathroom drain, or go to the store with the grocery list. Jeez, sorry. Since I don't wear a watch, I was trying to keep track of the time, so I'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Sorry about that. And Ken also doesn't have time to go to the store with a grocery list to buy refrigerated and hormone-free and canned soon-to-become Ken. Ken is a little tired of this constant effort of becoming and losing. Though when Ken thinks of all he has lost, he most laments those things that are not Ken, like people and time, which Ken too often remembers. And since Ken is always annexing and molting, flourishing and exfoliating, and never truly in one place, only memory holds him together, and the memory of others who see that moment's Ken standing on a street corner waiting for the light to change and say, "Hey Ken, where have you been?" I'm going to read a couple poems from my book. This is a poem about, does anyone know what Reiki is? The only time I ever had Reiki done to me, I did not know what it was. And I've felt for a long time that a poem is, I shouldn't say that all poems, but for me, poems come, I write them better out of ignorance than knowing too much about a subject. So knowing nothing about this after the experience, this is what happened. It's called At Reiki. She put her hands where for months I'd only put my own, and a few places I couldn't reach, telling me when to breathe, when to relax. I lay flat on my back on the padded table, could smell the oils she wore when she leaned in close. Outside, pine boughs were pawing at the light gusts of wind. Birds chirped, a car went by. The music she put on sounded like the ocean. For an hour I let myself drift, eyes closed, wondering what I was supposed to feel besides the warmth of a woman's hands and a slight rise in my jeans. I fell towards sleep, flashes of dream coming at me like fish in dark water, then returned, feeling again the warmth of her hands. Was this it? When she moved between my chest and my stomach, I heard for the first time little sounds she made, gulps of air followed by louder forces of breath pushed from her lips, the sound you might imagine goldfish make, puckering their lips. I didn't open my eyes. 30 minutes later we were done, and I'd felt nothing more than rested, curious where the magic was, the healing in all of this. Couldn't I just as simply relaxed with a nap? My eyes opened. She told me I'd released, that was her word, at each part of my body. Told me the sound I heard her make was crying. When I worked here, placing her hands again on my chest, So much sadness came out of you I couldn't stop from sobbing. Then she left me, left the room to clear, she said, what she'd taken in of mine. The music stopped. I lay alone and felt nothing in particular. All my life I've made women cry and thought it came from someplace other than my heart. So Sean mentioned I roof. My father owns a roofing company that started with his father, and I work part-time each week doing that, besides teaching. So depending on the day and the weather, I could be climbing a ladder or doing a number of things related to that. And this is kind of an autobiographical story or poem about when that first got started. It's called Gnat and Forest. 14, most things still out of reach. I worked all summer hauling buckets of tar up ladders, shouldered bundles of shingles in brown paper wrappers, apron after apron of 1-inch nails. By dusk each day, filled with heroes and cokes, worn muscles pulled me down while the dark blew through the humid van with the rattle of nail cans and toolboxes, squeak of old shocks, shifting 2x4s and propane bottles clanging as I sat on an overturned cement pail between Forest and Gnat. A plate covered with foil waited at home, whatever Mom made that night. I'd reheat it in our new microwave, eat alone in the bright kitchen while she watched TV in the den. Maybe I would read one of my new fishing magazines. Another covered plate sat on the stove. By the time Dad got home to eat, I'd be slouched before the tube, feet up, mumbling one-word answers to his queries about the job. Next morning, up at 6, a honk at 7, Nat greeted me with more cheer than Forrest, whose skin paled a dusty black when hung over, joking, jabbering the whole drive to the job after getting out and letting me clamber over the seat to my pail with my paper lunch sack. Once there, I'd untie the ladders and unload while they hooked on tool belts, sipped coffee from styrofoam cups, lit cigarettes, surveyed the worn shingles and blistered tar. Up on the roof, everything ready, we'd sit on the peak and watch the morning gather its blue-orange blaze above whatever town we'd be in that day. Nat would pull the rolling papers from his shirt pocket and fill one with a dirty green weed that looked like oregano. They'd light it, and I'd wait, shy in that smoky silence, proud to figure in among that hazy ritual. By summer's end, we'd fixed maybe 50 roofs. I entered my freshman year, saved for a car. At the first snows, Nat went to his wife in Norfolk, and Forrest's next 10 years with the company did not ripen into dignity, though I learned that power might be possessed by a man of few words, if those words were kind, and his arms you worked alongside were strong. I raise my hand to them now, no longer blistered, those heroes of my boyhood who brought me through from dawn's blaze to evening's pale finish in the summer of my 14th year, when I had no language for my rage, when I couldn't speak to my father, when my suburban troubles knew nothing of 2 black men living in Newark, New Jersey, city of my birth, from which we exiled ourselves before the riots, now crumbling into history. In the summer of my 14th year, when 2 men cooled my fears with my first beer, and whose only truths I shared were those about our common enemy, the man, our boss, my father. Thank you. So, I was on the beach yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, and I noticed this common thing that men do, that I do, that there was a couple walking by as I was sitting on the towel, and as they went by, the woman waved and the guy did that. And it's a kind of ritual that we have, a kind of, way we, communicate with each other, men, that, the wave won't really do. So a few years ago, I wrote this poem after having one of probably millions of such experiences, and it's called The Nod. And I'll try not to read it in too strong of a New Jersey accent. Guys like us, we nod to each other when we pass on the city street at night. We get that things are okay at the moment. The nod says, you don't mess with me, I don't mess with you. That's how it is with guys like us. Because the world is a bad place, that we get. And we get that guys like us have something to do with it. But not tonight. You're black, I'm white. We're both black or white, whatever, we're cool. Nobody's gonna throw hands. Who said anything about throwing hands? Because it's not a look. Nobody says, what are you looking at, dipshit? No. The nod reflects and respects and steers clear of trouble. It says we acknowledge our mutual suspicion, which masks our fear. We both get that the nod is part mask. The nod. Okay, bud. I'd drag you out of a burning building. You'd pick me up if I fell off a bar stool. Cool, we know that. Just don't ask anything of me right now unless it's some kind of fucking emergency. I'm on my way somewhere. So, maybe a little female energy time. This is a poem called Winter. The frustration of the 18-year-old daughter with her mother at the coffee shop, who apparently isn't moving fast enough. So she shoves the cream in front of her mom at the little side counter where they customize their drinks. The mother with serene lines on her face in a colorful ski cap, out of which a graying braided ponytail dangles. The intense daughter, perhaps taking after her father, whipping around the counter in quick, short steps, as if she is walking barefoot on snow. Her ire not directed at her mother alone, as she turns it on herself when she sees where they keep the refill containers. It's right in front of my face, duh. And just when you want to strangle her, she says something to her mom as her eyes bug out even more than usual. And they laugh and hold each other like best friends who are so close you could mistake them for enemy powers who have just signed a peace treaty. They could heat an entire house with that energy. They could fuel the world with the enmity of their love. So I'm going to read for about another hour and a half. There's a place I go to sometimes for a writing residency that's across the street from a women's college. And the very first time I was there, we had access to this college and the grounds and the pool and the gym and the library. And I know at least one person in the audience is a alum from there. So this is about that experience of being a man and walking around on a girls' college, women's college campus. It's called Women's College. I didn't think of myself as a sex offender or as someone whose sex was offensive until I walked across the campus of the Women's College. I tried to be as inconspicuous as possible, looking away when someone jogged past with a scrunchie holding back her hair and breasts bouncing just a little beneath a sports bra, making believe I had some business there by putting a purposeful stride in my step. I know I carry the chromosome of hatchet murderers and rapists. It's no wonder my hands felt like mallets at the end of my arms. After a while, I sat on a bench and tried to look at the oval pond, the trees and manicured shrubbery in front of the study hall, as passing girls gossiped in the late January sunlight, some of them tanned from winter break. So I got up to leave, making sure my shoulders looked slumped and unathletic, a little afraid of myself now, and massively unaware that one of them might consider my presence a welcome relief. So, we'll wind things down now. This is, I feel like I kind of have to read this poem. It's about it's kind of in a form of a letter, and it could be an email, and it's in the voice of someone who's just had a first date, which is also the last date. And the title of the poem is the first line. Having not heard back from you, I suspect you must be dead. If you are reading this, then you are not dead. After I chose the wine and teased the waiter for spilling a little on my good shirt, after the appetizers arrived, and I told the joke about the priest and the porcupine, which made you spit a fleck of calamari from your beautiful mouth across the white tablecloth. After I revealed the secret, because your smile gave me permission, that I love the new movie everyone thinks is bad. After I lowered my eyes and put down my fork when you said they couldn't stop the hemorrhage in your father's brain. After I paid the bill, walked you back to your apartment and didn't try to kiss you, left you laughing as the doorman greeted you, and turned to walk alone the midnight streets with the light of the world sloshing in my chest and my skin feeling like the sunrise on the first day of vacation. Having not heard back from you, I suspect you must be dead. If you are reading this, you are dead to me. I think he's lying. I'll read two more poems. This is a very short one that, maybe it's that same guy, decades later. And it's also in the form of a letter. This one is maybe not a letter, but it's in the form of a personal ad. And it's a kind of a sonnet, and it starts with a line from William Butler Yeats. It's called Please Respond. When I am old and gray and full of sleep. I should stop and say that maybe this guy is also having a midlife crisis.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about?
I wrote it when I was eating a bowl of Cheerios in my boxer shorts. Any more? Okay, sorry. Please respond. When I am old and gray and full of sleep, who's going to wipe my ass and change my diaper like my mother did when I was 3? I have no wife, no kids, no money saved, so some underpaid immigrant can do the job. No nieces, nephews to install a handrail in the shower. I should blow my brains out before it comes to that. Take the creaky walk into the woods and rest my chin upon the shotgun barrel's lip. If you are halfway there yourself and think you'll have no one to call but 911 when you fall and break a hip, it may not be too late to save ourselves. Maybe that's what they call gallows humor. Okay, so I'm going to close with this poem. It's a very different kind of poem for me. So I don't really know how to introduce it, but thank you so much. You guys have been really great. And thank you, Sean. This is called The Horses. The horses spend nearly all day with their necks down, lips moving an inch above the ground as if they are whispering to grass. Even in the rain with its soft drone, when their coats darken to a slick sheen, you go out and watch them, arms draped over a top fence rail, 1 foot up on the bottom board. There is nothing ethical about them, but they diminish the noise in the landscape, calm it with their elemental power, which soaks like water into the hour. The field is wide as a cloud. It stops everything from hurting, and the past begins to clarify itself like an old marriage seen from the distance of years. Somewhere inside the horses, secrets are stacked like plates in a cupboard before a party, and the guests are everyone you didn't allow to love you. Big as dictionaries, their hearts contain every word ever written, as dusk bleeds down over the horizon of their oily reddened backs, while a wren's notes sexualize the air. They will be out there all night, invisible and snuffling in the dark, even after you go inside and turn on the light, then turn it off again and lie down. Why didn't you allow them to love you? Thank you.
To introduce Brian Turner. Please. Have I caught you by surprise?
Yes, but that's okay. I'd love to introduce
Can you do it? Do you want me to get his book or anything for details?
Got it.
You got it. She's on it.
Everything about
She knows it all. This is my friend Susan Lilly. She's a poet from Winter Park. She read in the community church organ and poetry Lenten concert, one of the third one, and she was fabulous. The choir is still talking about her. Even the choir.
You know when the choir's talking about you. Oh gosh, I really wasn't. I introduced Brian yesterday. I don't have my notes or even my phone, but you're in for a treat because Brian Turner is one of my favorite poets. In fact, this whole day is filled with my favorite poets, so it's really great. But Brian is a poet and a memoirist. I first learned about him as a poet and then as a friend, but I'm especially fond of his first book because I think it's one of those poetry books that you start reading, you're dipping into it, and the next thing you know, 2 hours have gone by and you're just frozen. I couldn't stop until I read the whole thing. The book is called Here Bullet, and although he's had collections since then that are beautiful, that one really blazes in my mind. Brian lives in Orlando, but is always gone. You can hardly grab a coffee with him because he's in demand everywhere. He travels about as much as a poet. I guess of any poet I know. He also directs the MFA program at Sierra Nevada College. So he spends a little time out in Tahoe, which is really tough, I'm sure. And and he really is a wonderful person, as well as a good writer. You know, some writers are just jerks, but not Brian. Anyway, his work, seriously, his work about his time in some war-torn places as a soldier in Iraq have been so meaningful that it's given all kinds of people a new way to view that experience in a really close-up, horrible but beautiful way because it's so authentic and so beautifully written. So, my pal, Brian Turner.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. Wow, that was a beautiful reading. I'm so glad to hear your work out loud. We've spent a lot of time, having a drink and talking about this stuff, but to actually hear this stuff out loud, I feel like I'm really going to mess it up now. But it's good because if I'm a bridge, I'm a creaky bridge to another fine poet. So we'll be good in the long run. I think I might just start right off the bat. Maybe I'll just tell a story. Can I do that? Because I'm going to read a couple poems, and I think it'll be kind of kick-ass. You know what I mean? Kind of kicking in doors and being like Sergeant Turner. And I want you to see like the real deal before you see that guy, so you know. So imagine me not too long ago, well, a little bit back, but this story is about a pair of pants. And I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, as an infantry recruit, and I was going through training. And there was another guy there named Lozano from New York. He was an Italian guy. He was about the same height as me, but I've gained a little weight since I was in service. I was a little thinner then, but he was bigger like me now. And so his pants, what happened was we'd washed our pants all together as a platoon, all of our uniforms. And then that day he stole a Snickers bar at the local little PX. They caught him stealing the Snickers. Boom, he was kicked out, right? Never really made it into the Army. But his pants were still there, right? And I went, and when they got distributed, somehow I didn't end up with my pants, but I got Lozano's pants. I could tell because it says on the back, it says Lozano written inside, They fit, okay. I just had to cinch them with a belt and I'm okay. So I kept them. I was at Fort Drum up in New York. They were sort of in my gear, and then I ended up getting another contract. I went from Fort Drum, so I was in for 7 years, 1 month and 29 days total. And in my second contract, I was in Fort Lewis, Washington. And we went to train down in the dunes and part of the sort of rainforest area of the beach area of Oregon, which I didn't know that there was a base down there that the National Guard uses. My squad leader at the time, his grandmother had passed away, so he went home to take care of it. So it was the very first time that Brian had to be the acting squad leader in a fake war scenario, right, as we're training to go to Iraq. And so I thought, I know, because I trained quite a bit, I knew that it's very rough on your uniforms, so I don't want to mess up one of my beautiful garrison uniforms that I need for, parades and stuff like that, I'll use Lozano's pants. They get torn up, I don't care, So I put those on. And the thing about being a sergeant is you have to be a little bit faster than your men, because you have to be barking at them to hurry up and let's go kind of thing, with a lot of F words in there, And the only way to do that, it's all by increments. So I've got to be able to get my boots laced up quicker. I've got to get my pants, get the thing, I've got to be ready while I'm waiting for them. Like, what is that kind of thing. So, and so when I was in one of the stores before we went down there, I remember seeing these Velcro belts. And I thought, perfect, right? Done. And I'm on to the next thing. They're looping the belt loop and pulling it through and putting it through the thing. I'm done. I'm on the next thing. So got it. But I never thought about Velcro and water, right? Because it doesn't mix very well. I don't know if you've ever found this in your own life, but so now it's nighttime. Sergeant Turner with his squad, with a platoon, we're in wedges. Looks like sort of like arrows from above, like right, one squad, another squad, another squad. We're stealthily walking through the woods. We're going to attack and take over an enemy gun emplacement. Which I don't even know what that is. There's a machine gun nest is what we're told is up ahead. So as we're walking, about 40 of us, through the dark with night vision goggles on, my weapon, we have these push-to-talk mics. So there's like a Phil Collins microphone here, and I can push and say, Jakowski, move to your left. Roger, Sergeant, that kind of stuff, right? Suddenly there's like these referees. They're called OCs. And they sort of watch the scenario and they kind of control it. So in this scenario, one of them pops an fake artillery round, throws it, boom! Everybody hits the dirt. And I'm Sergeant Turner, so I hit the dirt harder than anybody else, I can hit the dirt, and I hit it really hard. So hard, in fact, that I don't realize this, that because it's wet and it's very mulchy, that it pushes soil and debris, it compacts it into that Phil Collins microphone push button. So now it's pushed down permanently, which I don't know. So I'm doing what's called hot miking, which means the microphone is on the whole time. No one seems to be responding to me, like Zubrik, my team leader, who's taken off with half of my squad, lost in the dark. I don't even know where they are. I grab a couple of my soldiers, calling for Zubrik. I hope I don't use the F word too much here, but imagine it, quite a bit. Sergeant Zubrik is gone. He ends up dying long before I even get to where he's at. Because we have sensors on, so when you've been hit, beep, you've been killed. Or beep, 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 you've been injured, wounded, right? So that's sort of how the process goes as we're moving forward towards this nest. And I grab a few. There's one or two soldiers from another squad. It just was a mass kind of confusion that slowly started to develop into a cohesive attack towards this machine gun nest. So I start running through the woods with my team, yelling, Sergeant Zavala, where Zubrik? Where are you, Zubrik? And I think what they're hearing is, because my pants, the Velcro, because of the rain, it started falling, and Lozano's pants are falling. So the problem is that I've got night vision goggles so I can see, and they're tied off onto my helmet. And then my weapon is snapped into my gear so I can let it go, but I got to hold it when I'm running. Otherwise, it'll fly all over. But my pants are falling. But in order to call the Zubrik, I've got to push the fucking Zubrik, goddamn pants, I'm running, right? So and I look ahead and I can see there are a couple of trees up ahead, and I think, okay, I'm going to run through the trees. I can imagine where the others are running through as we're assaulting towards this hill and this gun emplacement. But what I don't see in the dark and the night vision goggles is this really thick sort of brambly brush stuff, which I hit again like Sergeant Turner does with all of my energy, so hard that it breaks the plastic mount that holds my night vision goggles. So now they're dangling down here. So I got to goddamn pants, trying to hold up and try to get to this thing, One guy, beep, 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 and I'm running. There's one guy with me. He's a very short guy named Roundtree, and we called him Shaft because it's a long story. To be honest, he had the largest porn collection in our platoon. But one soldier had died, and he grabbed the large machine gun that he had, so we'd have something to bear onto the machine guns that we're about to attack. By the time we get to the machine gun emplacement, there's just the two of us left. Most of the platoon has been wiped out, I can still hear the machine guns from our platoon providing covering fire for us. Bum, 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 over there. So I know they're still going. But it's just me and Shaft, right? And we're laying down right where the wire is. There's all this concertina wire coiled around this hill with a machine gun nest. Before us, other soldiers in our platoon have died, but they've cleared a breach in the wire. They cut the wire, moved it, took a couple of chem lights, like you would see when you're camping, you snap them and they're illuminated lights, put one on each side to make a gate. So we're laying there, I'm thinking, I tell them, I said, we're going to assault it. Well, combat roll, assault. So I combat roll over, pop up, ready to go like Sergeant Turner, but the problem is I didn't roll far enough. I thought I'd rolled far enough, but I didn't. But I ran forward, because I'm Sergeant Turner, and I didn't go into the breach hole, but in that little dip in the ground where all the wire was, I went down onto it, and then, so I'm sort of like this, like an accordion on the wire, And right about that point, my patience kind of snapped, and I did something that was pretty stupid. I just did kind of Wolverine, like that. I was so mad, and I cut myself up a little, but it was okay, just superficial kind of wounds and stuff, but definitely ruined Lozano's pants at this point. And I looked up, and I could see two of the OCs, the silhouettes up on the side of the hill, and they didn't say a word, and they didn't need to. They had their arms folded, and they were looking, and I could hear like their little thought bubbles of just, do you believe this guy? And thankfully, Roundtree Shaft, he kind of helped me extricate myself from the wire, and we went through the proper breach lane, went up thing, and here's the thing is that, on behalf of the United States of America and the flag that I carried on my shoulder, me with my pants falling and trying to see, and little Roundtree Shaft with this giant weapon that just seemed absurd, we assaulted and drove off the enemy from the hill and then called in for support. We were the heroes that saved the day for you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I thought maybe I should share that because we're talking about manliness and all this stuff. And the reality is that our pants are always falling off. We don't really know where we're going. And we need help to get out of the difficult situations we put ourselves in, So, yeah. But maybe our what a crazy life, right? Yeah. So this is, I think I'm going to start with a poem that is with me when I'm back home in Fresno, California, after I've come back from my time in the military. We'll let that ring. Right? I thought about putting my phone because I thought it'd be cool if each of us had a phone call while we were up here. That would be, yeah. This is called Call It Leaves and Rain. I was walking through the middle of my life, walking down to Visadero Street wearing old desert combat fatigues, listening to the antifreeze boil over. I was listening to the antifreeze boil over in conversations on the street, that dead-end steaming hiss of radiators run 100,000 miles and more. The radiators boiled over in fatigue while I was walking 100,000 miles down to Visadero Street in Fresno, and it was July, and the asphalt was speaking its vapor, and I was wearing combat boots and walking through the middle of my life. I was listening to war. I was listening to War on Divisadero Street and learning how to ride low through the rest of my life, learning how to walk the blocks in tighter and tighter circles, the way the lost do. In tighter and tighter circles, I was lost to the war on Divisadero Street. I was circling the war the way vapor curls from the steaming hiss of dead radiators in Fresno. I was circling the lost in Fresno, wearing my combat boots worn down 100,000 miles and counting. And I was counting. I counted each dying face passing by. I counted the birds with their exhausted voices. I counted the sentinel birds perched silent in the eucalyptus trees above. I circled the eucalyptus birds and listened for their medicine the way the lost do in Fresno, wearing combat boots and speaking in vapor. I was circling through the middle of my life, right there under the medicine trees, listening to the silence of the sentinel birds and waiting for them to boil over in steam. But that's not what medicine birds do. Medicine birds break open in orange and red. Medicine birds have eucalyptus leaves for feathers, and they bandage the air when they fly. Medicine birds fly through the windows in the head, impervious to glass. They are impervious to war and hiss and steam and vapor and combat and the circling lost. Medicine birds fly through the windows to land in our beds when we're dreaming our circling dream of Divisadero and Fresno with its lost and circling war. Medicine birds have eucalyptus wings, and when they fly in our beds, they transform themselves into leaves and rain and lovers. The lovers in our beds are eucalyptus birds flying medicine through the windows in our heads. The lovers in our medicine beds fly eucalyptus through the circling loss. The lovers in our beds bring medicine to our lips and call it eucalyptus, call it love, call it leaves and rain for our exhausted souls. Yeah, I think now we were going to read poems, and I'm really messing this up, man. But today I thought there's a reason I want to do this, but I want to read a short passage from this, because I mentioned Sergeant Zapata earlier. Here's just a short passage. Sergeant Zapata wore headphones connected to the mine detector in his hands, which hovered 2 or 3 inches over the soil, reflecting the moonlight falling through the bare trees of the orchard. His squad automatic weapons gunner, Lou, pulled security as the mine detector swept from right to left and back again, pausing here and there as Zapata listened for all that might be buried in the earth. Lou stood with a small, foldable shovel in one hand and the barrel of his weapon pointed up at the planet Mars. He mulled over which type of bumper to buy for the '67 Shelby he had stored in the garage of his parents' home back in San Francisco. I was in the animal stall with the prisoners. All the men from the adjacent farmhouses were of military age. We'd cinched their hands behind their backs, the flex cuffs binding their wrists together, pulled sandbags over their heads. We'd walked them in a silent line from their homes across the dirt courtyard. The women and children were gathered together in one of the tent rooms of the biggest house, given blankets to keep themselves warm, a guard standing in the doorway to watch over them as their homes were thoroughly searched. In the animal stall, each man was separated a few paces from the other prisoners and made to place the instep of one foot over the heel of the opposite leg before being guided down into a kneeling position in the loose straw at the center of the enclosure. The morning call to Azan wouldn't happen for another 2 or 3 hours. For now, we leaned in close to the hooded men and whispered in their ears the words we most wanted to hear from them. How when? Which means mortars, mortars. The sergeant to my right was stuck on repeat, circling a prisoner. You know, don't you? Yeah, you know, you fucking know, squirrely little bastard. But it's all right. All you got to do is tell. Tell us what you know. The muzzle of his carbine rested against the man's back. A milk cow stared at us with its huge brown eyes. The milk cow tilted its head from one side to the other, then lowered its mouth and nostrils to snuff its breath and quickly and blast a short snot of air into the straw, which rose in a cloud of dust and paper-thin husks. Another soldier called out from the haystack in the corner, I got nothing here, Sergeant. You want me to keep looking? The sergeant seemed to ignore the question. Instead, he leaned in closer to the hooded man in the straw before him. You want me to have him stop looking? Why don't you just tell me instead? Hours later, when the dawn breaks over the far mountains, some higher up will realize we've raided the wrong site and that the target house is actually beyond the date palms across the river. We'll have to remove the hoods from these men, gingerly cut the flex cuffs with the sawtooth blades of our Leathermans, then shake their hands, bowing to them slightly, apologizing constantly, holding our black gloves palms out to them. We're sorry, so sorry, Sadiq, but my apologies. I'm really... And so on as we back up and mount our vehicles and roll out. But for the time being, I stood in the animal stall and studied the bound men slumping forward in the straw. The night wore on. Most of them shivered in the cold, one of them sobbing to himself, while in the front room of the large farmhouse, another soldier stared through night vision goggles at the women and children huddled in a black corner. They whispered to one another, hushing the sleepless children in their laps. And the soldier in the doorway traversed the room with his left eye in a luminous globe, that insomniac green, the color of fresh leaves lit from within, and he stopped his gaze on a woman staring directly back at him, whose eyes reflected in bright ovals of phosphorescent green. So clear, the soldier quickly turned away, shuffled, spat a stream of tobacco juice into the hallway, cleared his throat. In the orchard rows beyond, Lou continued to think of San Francisco and Ford Mustangs, while Sergeant Zapata paused with a search coil of the metal detector over a slight depression, closed his eyes, and listened to the earth. Part of the reason I bring that, it's okay. Part of the reason I bring that up is because I was thinking about Sergeant Zapata. It's not his real name. He became a Special Forces soldier, so I've altered the name to protect him and his family. But he was born in Mexico. When he was 13, he had moved to, which is a nice way of saying it. It's an interesting word. Moved to Los Angeles, and he fought beside me and served beside me for several years in Iraq, for example. And while we were there, he failed his citizenship test. And I was thinking about how that process of sitting on a base that's mortared by these same mortars we were looking for, doing the test, and then some other person, like one of us, said, "I'm very sorry, but you didn't pass this time," Or he could have been taking the test, and before being told that, one of those mortars, just because of the way the air pressure is, the humidity, and the way the round flies through the air, lands there and kills him. And then he would have been taken home to America, right? And he would have been buried, likely in a military cemetery. And oftentimes during there are days where camera crews go out, right? And the local news crew will go out during Memorial Day or Veterans Day. And there'll be a lot of veterans out there proudly saluting the veterans there, Sergeant Zapata among them, extolling the virtues of this person. But he failed his citizenship test. And if you get a chance, there's a wonderful writer named J. Malcolm Garcia, who's writing a book that'll come out soon, talking about deported veterans who are living in Mexico right now, people like Sergeant Zapata, who Mexico really isn't their home, and they're trying to figure out how to survive in this world. I have a lot of questions. I don't have any answers, but I really feel like we should stir the pot, and we should think about, as a community and as a culture, what are we doing? Who is American? Nobody tested me. Nobody's ever asked me any questions to see, am I an American? Should I get to stay here? For what it's worth, I think if you don't mind, I'll read maybe one last poem, and then if I can find it. This is the last poem I wrote while I was in Iraq, and it's called Night in Blue. I wrote it while we were we were on a base that was being attacked quite a bit, and because they knew that there were two units there. They were waiting for the outgoing unit and the incoming unit to come in, so there were twice as many soldiers on the base. So it's what's called a target-rich environment, right? And we were in the groups, they call them chalks. So our chalk was waiting for the other chalks to go, so our group could get on the plane and go. It's happening 24 hours a day, but we were in a room about maybe like from here to the pole, about that size, just sandbagged to the gills with two doors at each end, and our platoon, all of our gear in the center of the room, and the guys sleeping, and some of them doing the last-minute push-ups for the girlfriends back home, trying to get a little kind of, and then most of them reading books, a lot of them sleeping, because the more you slept, the less time you were actually deployed. Right? You just sort of could subtract your deployment period. And then I was writing this poem as if I was already on the bird. One note though, the chalk before us, their plane took off, a surface-to-air missile was fired, it lodged in the fuselage of the plane, and then it didn't explode. And then they emergency landed and did it again. They didn't tell us that till we got to Kuwait, but we were thinking it though. Night in Blue. At 7,000 feet and looking back, running lights blacked out under the wings, and America waiting. A year of my life disappears at midnight. The sky a deep viridian, the house lights below small as match heads burned down to embers. Has this year made me a better lover? Will I understand something of hardship, of loss? Will a lover sense this in my kiss or touch? What do I know of redemption or sacrifice? What will I have to say of the dead? That it was worth it? That any of it made sense? I have no words to speak of war. I never dug the graves in Telefar. I never held the mother crying in Ramadi. I never lifted my friend's body when they carried him home. I have only the shadows under the leaves to take with me, the quiet of the desert, the low fog of Balad, orange groves with ice forming on the rinds of fruit. I have a woman crying in my ear late at night when the stars go dim. Moonlight and sand is a resonance of the dust of bones, and nothing more. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, that's it. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot about Tony.
Take your best shot, baby.
We were practicing my introduction. We just said, Tony, just get up here. No, I can tell you a little bit about him. Not very much. Because just as he is not really that acquainted with me, I'm the same. You know, you'd think we were long-lost friends. Well, we are long-lost friends. We're just not staying lost about it. He's the author of 4 previous poetry collections. This is probably a dated assessment of your publications, because he has many. And not only, okay, I'll iterate some. Unincorporated Persons in the late Honda dynasty. The title itself is funny. And What Narcissism Means to Me. He was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. He's also the author of 2 collections of essays. Most recently, 20 Poems That Could Save America and Other Essays. Very intriguing. Poetry might save us. What do you think?
Only if we read it.
And he teaches in Houston. And he's going to try to get back tomorrow, try to leave early enough that he can get back and do his class in Houston tomorrow afternoon. So, Tony, you better get started so you're not late for class.
Wow. Well, I've been in the audience too. Quite a journey, huh? I really feel like there should be a break. So that's what I love about poetry, what these 2 guys just read. It slows you down, doesn't it? Stops you in your tracks, and it takes you down. It's so valuable that way. Let you know the good news and the bad news. Part of the good news is that you can still feel something. So, it's a real privilege to be reading with Brian and Ken. Beautiful men. So you get to see, oh yeah, there's a man whose agenda is to go into the heart. Anyway, I'm going to follow the theme here, and so our duty as men poets, is sort of to enlarge the perimeter of what being a man looks like, and to own the good and the bad things about what it is, and to embrace the profane along with the sacred parts. Try to name them both. So. The sequence of poems I've got is a little irregular, but this is really about the lifetime activity of male fantasy about women, and that's it. It's pretty obvious. It doesn't have to be pathologized, even though it's connected to a lot of pathological things in the world. It's called Not Renouncing. I always thought that I was going to catch Elena in the library one afternoon, and she would shove me gently backwards into the corridor of 839.7 in the Dewey Decimal System, where we would do it in the cul-de-sac of 18th century drama. Or I thought that we would meet by chance in a bed and breakfast on the Delaware seashore, and B&B each other in a helter-skelter of goose-down duvets and chamomile tea. When I flew over the high plains of Wyoming, I dreamed of taking off her cowboy shirt and seeing her pale skin in a field of windswept prairie grass, which kept us completely out of sight. And even in the British National Museum, I fell into a trance before the model of the castle and the moat, the drawbridge and the catapult, with all those movable, moving parts. This is the imagination of a man. It waxes and wanes all through his life like a kind of tumescence. I am not bragging, and I'm not renouncing. I stood in one garden looking over the fence at another. I thought I had to change my life or just give up, but I didn't. Year after year, they kept growing into each other. The dreamed into the real into the dreamed. The two gardens, standing their flexible, sinuous vines, their tendrils and unbuttoning blossoms ceaselessly over their borders. I'm going to read two poems about, I guess, sort of following up on Brian's themes. You know, what is America? You know, you hear that politicians over and over again, they say it like they were spraying a little mace into your face. They say, the American people, the American people, the American people. It's like, what do you mean? Anyway, so this is sort of a catalog of some of the elements of American culture, called Eventually the Topic. The reality TV show brought together fat white Alabama policemen and African American families from Detroit to live together in a custom-made plantation for a month. America, stupidity plus enthusiasm is a special kind of greatness. When I was a child, said Kevin, I spoke as a child, and I thought as a child, but now I am a man, and I put away childish things. His wife doesn't think that St. Paul was talking about giving up gluten. The surgeons compare the human heart to an engine. The car mechanics compare the engine to a heart. The metaphor works for both of them, and it explains why one of the mechanics, Carl, has been asking the same woman out and being refused for 14 years. This winter sky is flat and pale and stretches out almost, it seems, forever. A pure performance of the verb to yearn. Human beings weren't meant to live like this, said Aldous Huxley, but what did he mean by this? And how do you define meant? Eventually, the topic turns out to be time. Time and the self. It's about getting tempered, like a sword held in the fire. It's about getting cooked in the oven, like a loaf of bread. And one day, when the smoke clears, when the eyes are calm, when the heart is clear and steady, then, when that day comes, then, on that sweet morning that is coming, we will use the sword to cut the bread. Amen. I want to read a poem now for Susan Lilly. She mentioned it to me yesterday. It's a poem I wrote some years ago, and it's, again, trying to talk about America. And talking about how when you live in a profusion of such of such luxury and such access to everything on every side, whether it's information or luxury or products, it's hard to believe or hard to justify or explain to yourself the sense that you're suffering from so much surfeit. But in fact, that is a kind of surfeit. That is kind of suffering. To have too much is a kind of suffering. But it's indecent even to name it. We shouldn't really mention that because it seems indecent to say, I have too much. There's too much information. So in the poem, I make one of my students complain about this, and then I make fun of the student for complaining about it, like, you spoiled little brat. And that's called the Socratic method, where you allow somebody else to voice the complaint, and then you correct them. So it's called America. Then one of the students with blue hair and a tongue stud says that America is for him a maximum security prison whose walls are made of Radio Shacks and Burger Kings and MTV episodes where you can't tell the show from the commercial. And as I contemplate how full of shit I think he is, he says that even when he's driving to the mall in his Isuzu Trooper with a gang of his friends, letting rap music pour over them like a boiling jacuzzi full of ball peen hammers, even then, he feels buried alive, captured and suffocated in the folds of the thick satin quilt of America. And I wonder if this is a legitimate category of pain, or whether he is just spin doctoring a better grade. And then I remember that when I stabbed my father in the dream last night, it was not blood, but money that gushed out of him. Bright green $100 bills spilling from his wounds. And this is the funny part. He gasped, "Thank God. Those Ben Franklins were clogging up my heart. And so I perish happily, freed from that which kept me from my liberty." Which is when I knew it was a dream, since my dad would never speak in rhymed couplets. And I look at the student with his acne and his cell phone and his phony ghetto clothes, and I think, I am asleep in America too, and I don't know how to wake myself either. And I remember what Marx said near the end of his life. I was listening to the cries of the past when I should have been listening to the cries of the future. But how could he have imagined 100 channels of 24-hour cable? Or what kind of nightmare it might be when each day you watch rivers of bright merchandise run past you, and you are fishing, and you are floating in your pleasure boat upon that river, even while others are drowning underneath you, and you see their faces twisting in the surface of the waters, and yet it seems to be your own hand which turns the volume higher. This is a poem about fathers and sons, I guess, and I think the reason I thought of it was because I'm in Florida, where nature is in a way uncontainable and hopefully inextinguishable and strong, and it will come out on every side at any opportunity. You can't stop it. This has got frogs frogs are in the poem, and sort of imagines that my father and the other dead fathers have been reincarnated as bullfrogs, and they probably have found a more optimal identity than their human one. It's called Frog Song. I go out on the porch to smoke and listen to the voices of dead fathers from the marsh beyond the trees. They are reborn as bullfrogs, and at a certain hour of the night, they begin to speak with disproportionate satisfaction from the warm porridge of the swamp, where they believe that they are geniuses and kings, having discovered an unexpected gift for throat singing and an ability to love themselves they were denied in human life. This humid, starry night, a zillion crickets, shimmeringly shrill, like an enormous diagnosis of tinnitus. Around each light, a swirl of moths. Above the trees, the spiraled galaxies, against which my own unhappiness is such a bunch of small potatoes as to be a form of humor. Father, go take your place among your kind, content in the oily moistness of your skin, replete in your ability to catch the quickest bugs. I would have loved you more if only I'd known you were a frog. Amphibious, mottled, and small-brained, not intimate by nature, preferring to stay half immersed below the waterline. So much a part of nature's plan, you were oblivious to it. Tonight, under the varnished, punctured canvas of the sky, where the moon is rising in a humid daze, we crouch, singing our midnight song. So I'm going to read a poem I wrote last year for my friend Ken Hart. He called me on the phone, and he said that, he'd had a bad experience, sort of like a five car accident, traffic accident with a girlfriend of his, and he said they had been talking again, that he was going to go meet her at a coffee shop, and I just want to say, stupid. Don't do it. And so he didn't listen to my advice in real life, unfortunately. But I wrote this poem. Frank O'Hara, the American poet, one of the American poets I love the best, said that a poem is what you write instead of making a phone call. So I guess I wrote this poem as a kind of phone call. Now it's a retro piece of history. It's called Ken, Don't Go to Meet the Ex-Girlfriend. At the coffee shop in Montclair, that she referred to on the phone as neutral territory. Don't go while your wound is still open and raw, or with some misguided therapeutic notion that you are going to talk things through, or get some closure, or do some conscious uncoupling. That idea is as dumb as taking a vitamin B shot for a broken arm. It is like using the lyrics of a top country western song as your master plan for happiness. Furthermore, it is an expression of your own romantic masochism, which, let's face it, may play a subtextual role in this whole, if I can quote your former therapist, narrative of unavailability, which she says has something to do with your mom. So Ken, don't go to meet her at the mall. Don't agree to meet her at the Starbucks under the Cinzano umbrella, which she suggested because, as she has already told her friend Wanda, she wants to be in a public place in case you try to make a scene. As if you were a guy named Billy Bob with an Aryan tattoo and a daytime drinking problem. Don't go to meet the ex-girlfriend, Ken. She is already a personified can of mace pointed into your face. She's an Egyptian hieroglyphic that doesn't want to be deciphered. Her heart has been preemptively steeled and sheathed in anti-Ken armor. It isn't so bad to be halted in your tracks, to stand on the baffled sidewalk watching clouds in the late autumn sky. It's not bad to feel ghost-like and useless as the wilting flowers in your hand. So Ken, be nobody now. Date nobody. Kiss nobody. Walk nobody gently, nowhere, slow. Stay home tonight and read Vivian Gornick essays about the impossibility of modern relationship. And drink a glass of red wine and laugh as you underline passage after brilliant passage. This is another poem about the almost but maybe not quite irredeemability of men. And it imagines it's sort of a science fiction poem. It's about a day in the future when all the men, every man gets thrown out of his house, once, twice, 3 times in life, and then he begs his way back in. You all know that. The problem is that all the men don't get thrown out at the same time. And so the women lose a valuable moment of negotiation opportunity. But if all the men got thrown out at the same time and they were all sort of collectively bargaining to reform in order to be readmitted to the hearth, that there actually might be a possibility for some contractual fairness. It's called And the Men Want Back In. It's kind of a prayer. All the Dougs and the Michaels, the Darnells, the Erics and Jose's, they're standing by the off-ramp of the interstate, holding up cardboard signs that say, "We'll work for relationship." Their love mobiles are dented and rusty. Their shaggin' wagons are up on cinder blocks. They're reading self-help books and practicing abstinence, taking out personals ads that say, "Good listener would like to meet lesbian ladies for purposes of friendship only." In short, they've changed their minds, the men. They want another shot at the collaborative enterprise. They want to do 50-50 housework and child care. They want commitment renewal weekends and couples therapy. Because being a man was finally just too sad. In spite of the perks, the lifetime membership benefits. And it got old telling the joke about the hooker and the priest at the company barbecue, punching the shoulders of a bud in a little overflow of homosocial bonhomie. Now, they're ready to talk, really talk about their feelings. In fact, they're ready to make you sick with revelations of their vulnerability. A pool of testosterone is spreading from around their feet. It's draining out of them like radiator fluid, like history, like an experiment that failed. So here they come, on their hands and knees, the men. Here they come. They're really beaten. No tricks this time. No fine print. Please, they're begging you. Look out. This is a poem I wrote about getting older and finding myself not especially arriving at that state of serenity and wisdom that I'd hoped for. And it's called Crazy Motherfucker Weather, which is really quite fun to say. Crazy motherfucker weather. It's and you are the weather. You are yourself the weather. That's the problem, So it's about what I just said. Crazy motherfucker weather. Taking the car out of the rental parking lot, almost getting fender-bendered by the guy in the BMW, speaking capitalist Cro-Magnon into his cell phone, wondering whether the time has come to get a gun, already starting to look forward to my lethal injection, or hanging up the phone in the middle of a conversation at the moment it no longer interests me, having reached the limit of what can be reasonably endured. What happens next? Am I entering the season of tantrums and denunciations? My crazy motherfucker weather? Will I be yelling at strangers on the plane, begging the radio for mercy, hammering the video rental machine to get my money back, knowing it a sin to waste even a smidgen of this life under the blue, authentic glory of the sky, wondering whether a third choice exists between resignation and going around the bend? Yet, still, the wild imperative of self, the sobbing sense that one has not been loved, the absolute demand for nothing less than transformation, the flaring force of this thing we call identity, as if it were a message, a burning coal one carries in one's mouth for 60 years. For delivery to whom, exactly? To where? And I'm going to read 2 more poems. This is called Distant Regard. If we got a death sentence about once every 2 or 3 years, we would probably be better people. Our affairs would be in order. We would be kinder and slower, I think. And so this is sort of about that, about how you would behave if you knew you were going to be dead next year. It's called Distant Regard. If I knew I would be dead by this time next year, I believe I would spend the months from now till then writing thank you notes to strangers and acquaintances, telling them, you really were a great travel agent. Or, I never got the taste of your kisses out of my mouth. Or, watching you walk across the room was part of my destination. It would be the equivalent, I think, of leaving a chocolate wrapped in shiny foil on the pillow of a guest in a hotel. Hotel of Earth, where we resided for some time together, I start to say, then realize it is a terrible cliche, and stop, and then go on, forgiving myself in a mere split second. Because now that I'm dying, I just go forward like water, flowing around obstacles and second thoughts, not getting snagged, just continuing with my long list of thank yous, which seems to naturally expand to include sunlight and wind, and the aspen trees, which gleam and shimmer in the yard, and the intricate irrigation system, which floods their roots, invented by an individual whose name I will never know, but to whom I am quietly grateful. Outside, it is autumn, season when cold air sharpens the mind. The hills are red and copper in their shaggy majesty. The clouds blow overhead like governments and years. Time to contemplate the distant things, to learn from their example of calm. Time to practice affection without a desperate hanging on. It took me a long time to understand that phrase, distant regard. but I believe that I get it now. And I am grateful for my heart that turned out to be good after all. And grateful for my mind, to which, in retrospect, I can see I've never been sufficiently kind. So I'm going to close with a poem by somebody else and dedicate it to my co-readers, Ken, Brian, and to this man, Sean, who made this happen, and to you, thank you for coming. So this is our last trip, into that layer underneath the layers. It's a beautiful poem. I just found it by accident. It's by a guy I think is a scholar of Japanese art, medieval Japanese art. His name is Roger Keyes. I have no idea about him. He's never published a book of poems as far as I know. And it's called Hokusai Says. And Hokusai, you probably know, is that wonderful Japanese woodcut artist who did, among other things, that breaking wave that you see sort of iconically reproduced all the time. So the poem's Hokusai Says. The writer is Roger Keyes. Hokusai says, look carefully. He says, keep looking. Stay curious. He says, there is no end to seeing. He says, look forward to getting old. He says, keep changing. You just get more who you really are. He says, get stuck. Accept it. Repeat yourself as long as it's interesting. He says, keep doing what you love. He says, keep praying. He says that every one of us is a child. Every one of us is ancient. Every one of us has a body. He says every one of us is frightened. He says every one of us has to find a way to live with fear. He says everything is alive. Shells, buildings, people, fish, mountains, trees. Wood is alive. Water is alive. Everything has its own life. Everything lives inside us. He says, live with the world inside you. He says, it doesn't matter if you draw or write books. It doesn't matter if you saw wood or catch fish. It doesn't matter if you sit at home and stare at the ants on your veranda or the shadows of the trees and grasses in your garden. It matters that you care. It matters that you feel. It matters that you notice. It matters that life lives through you. Contentment is life living through you. Joy is life living through you. Satisfaction and strength is life living through you. Peace is life living through you. He says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Thanks. Thank you, Sean.
Well, that just about covers the subject, the male dilemma. I think we got it nailed. We're ready to move on. How much time?
Let's take the nails out now.
We're ready to move on. How much time do you all have? We can. I was thinking we could cover another one. The evening is young. Daylight savings time, right? You want to take over?
Well, just for a second.
Yeah, I think you should.
You think I should?
Yeah, you do it.
Just for a second, because we do have time for one more. I'll explain just a minute. Silent auction is going to continue until 6:15. And at 6:15 it will end, and then we'll announce the winners of the silent auction at 6:30. Sean Sexton has brought to our community 3 fabulous writers. Thank you so much, Sean. Writers of such quality that if you listen to Writer's Almanac, how many of you listen to the Writer's Almanac? Garrison Keillor 901 every day. 2 weeks ago, in our local radio station, if you were listening to Writer's Almanac, you heard Garrison Keillor, in his wonderful resonance, read a Tony Hoagland poem. And Tony, I happen to have a copy of that poem here, and so we'd rather have you read it to us than Garrison Keillor. So we do have time for one more.
All right. Encore. It's easy listening. It won't trouble you. It's called. I wrote it for a friend of mine named Jason Schinder, who's not with us anymore, with me still, but who was always, it was just about. For him, life was a romantic square dance. So it's called Breaking Up is Hard to Do. On Friday afternoon, David said he was divesting his holdings in Stephanie.org. And Cindy announced that she was getting rid of all her Danobilia. And did anyone want a tennis racket or a cardigan? Alice told Michael that she was transplanting herself to another brand of potting soil. And Jason composed a 3-chord blues song called I Can't Rake Your Leaves Anymore, Mama, and insisted on playing it over his speakerphone to Ellen. The moon rose up in the western sky with an expression of complete exhaustion, like a 38-year-old single mother standing at the edge of the playground. Right at that moment, Betty was extracting coil after coil of Andrew's emotional intestines through a verbal incision she had made in his heart. And Jane was parachuting into an Ani DeFranco concert wearing a banner saying, "Get lost, Mark Resnick." That's how you find out of the blue. And it hurts, baby. It really hurts. Because breaking up is hard to do.
So I want to. We're going to have book signing back there, and we're going to set up a table, and the books are available at right at the table there where Chad Leonard is sitting. And so I hope you will come and greet these guys and buy their books, and I don't see how you can resist. And we want to thank, we have our beer man is Alden Bing, Orchid Island Brewery. He has come, he has fabulous beer, and Varietals and More has been greatly involved in our wine that we're going to serve tonight, and I hope you enjoy both of those things. Rob Wayne and Michelle also have a wine tasting in our silent auction. They've been very generous toward us. And I want to just name some of our sponsors again. Grayson and Chris Holly and Raymond James have been perennial supporters. They're right over there. We thank you so much. The Windsor Gallery, this is their second year supporting us, and they did so in a big way, and we're so pleased for that. And Greg and Cheryl Thorgerson and the UBS, they have been involved in this almost from the start. And Joanne Mitchell and Jim have always opened their home and their and their resources to us, and we're grateful. We've had donations from Harry Offit, from Don and Linda Proctor, from the Ocean Grill. The Ocean Grill, I go over there and I say, Charlie, and he says, I know. And then the reason I'm bringing this up is we keep the donation for your attendance modest because they are so helpful, and we want you here. We want you to hear poetry, and whatever it takes to get you here, you know. I'm not going to drop the price. So we have great barbecue. Please enjoy. Thank you.
I had my head stove in, but I'm still on my feet and I'm still living. I smuggled smokes and folks from Mexico. I'm baked by the sun every time I go to Mexico. Oh, but I'm still. I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari. Hatchet being told apart. I've driven every kind of rig that's ever been made. I've driven on the back roads.